Okay, welcome back. Another episode of Enter the Matrix. Nikolai, what is going on in the world today?
In my world, everything is quiet, with exception of some usual energetic processes and work. Hi, everyone.
Well, I was thinking about today's episode. And I know we've sort of touched on this with business, and I believe we touched on it with health, but I'm quite confident we have never really touched on the Nikolai system for love and relationships.
We did. We have an episode on that, but we should do it again because I have
Oh,
more
well,
data points.
because I have a lot of different questions here that I wanted to go into.
Excellent.
And the first one that I thought would be interesting as we start the transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where we are to where we're going. And is there a different version of love that exists in the V5 matrix than what exists in V6?
Well, first I'm going to make a side comment. And it's interesting how you intuitively picked the topic. Like we have an episode where I think it's called Finding True Love, where we talked about this, but we talked about it from a different context. And so this brings different new context because I've over the past, let's call it 6 months, I had some new experiences and reflections on the topic. And the question you're asking is exactly spot on some of the new recent reflections that I've been and experiences I had. So previously in that episode, and I'll include the link here to the other episode, I mentioned that most people on this planet have not experienced real love, especially when it comes to romantic relationship. Most of the romantic relationships are, let's call it some kind of a energetic contract, either unprocessed karma or souls agreed to do evolution together or whatever. And that's the instrument, that's the way Matrix brings specific souls and avatars together for evolution. And that energy of attraction, when Matrix need to bring two avatars for something, is perceived, that gravity, that like energy of gravity, where you're getting pulled, you're being interested in this person, you keep thinking about them. That's what people define as love.
Yeah.
Majority of people define love, but actually it's not love. It's just Matrix working to complete the contract. And one of the universal laws is a law of contract. All contracts must be carried out. Matrix is not judgmental, not emotional. It doesn't look into the details. If there is an energetic contract, it must be complete one way or another. So when souls are entering these bodies, if they agreed that they made a contract, let's say evolved together, or they have unprocessed karma because they've previously incarnated together, and one killed the other one, or one deeply upset at the other one, they've created a karmic loop or karmic knot. That has to be clear. That's type of contract because it's imbalance of energy. Let's say if souls incarnated previously and one cheated on the other one in a relationship, and it created deep trauma for one of the souls. So it's a disbalance of energy. And then those souls have to meet again and rebalance that energy, bring that relationship of those souls back to harmony, back to balance. So, and there are many permutations of that, like many. Like one I've just underlined, karmic. Another one, souls can consciously choose to, like, and now I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. We've talked about it, I think, in that episode that souls evolve in groups. There is a immediate group of soul family, and then there is a bigger group of souls, and that's basically souls that realize that they have substantial value incarnating together from a standpoint of view evolution. It's like they help each other to evolve. And once one soul finds another one and they have like an experience where like, wow, we've evolved together when we incarnated together.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we stick around together and keep doing this because we really help each other. And so through those groups, we also the souls create different types of contracts. It's like, okay, I'll incarnate with you again, and we're gonna do it through a contract. I promise you to help. So right now, there is a situation unfolding where I'm helping someone. My soul has a contract of support for that soul, and I showed up in that person's life at a specific point in time where they were stuck, and they've tried different things, but they're not unstuck. And then seemingly I show up out of nowhere, or my soul is like, we reconnect, and we've known each other for some time. And randomly I decide to check something that I wouldn't check for a person who I'm just catching up with. And I discovered there's a bunch of energetic distortions, blockages, and etc. And I was like, hey, why don't I clear all this for you? And as I'm clearing all this, the person started having, like, it's almost coming back to life. And this is an example. My soul had a contract with that soul for support. It's called contract of support, and my soul agreed, I will support you if necessary as you're going through your life, through your evolution. So where I'm going is this: there are many different flavors and permutations. Karmic flavor, where energy needs to rebalance, usually is that has one of the strongest gravities, that is perceived as this strong, as people call it, strong love. Oh, I cannot stop thinking about this person. I have butterflies. It feels like a roller coaster. Anytime you feel like a roller coaster or butterflies in your stomach, that's not love. That roller coaster is an indication of karmic energy. Love, a true love, is very peaceful. It's not explosive. It's very calm. It's peaceful. It's harmonious. It feels like this very subtle, warm energy that wraps you and hugs you. It's completely opposite of this butterflies. I can't stop thinking about this person and etc. because that type of energy is dysfunctional. I shouldn't call it dysfunctional, but it's let's call it it's not harmonious, and it's not true love. So let me bring now to how I started defining love differently. And we've chatted briefly about this. There are 4 types of love. Love of Jesus is unconditional love. That's what the character or persona of Jesus was showing to the civilization. And the story of Jesus has been like, it's not recorded properly or delivered properly because it's actually a collective persona. It was not a single person. It was multiple people. Then the collective story was written into one story that we call now Bible and etc. And that is also a separate topic. So, but that persona was showing this unconditional love, ability to accept anything and everything without judgment. But it does not mean to agree with anything and anyone. Acceptance and agreeing with that are 2 different things. You can accept that there is a parasitic form of life, let's say politicians. I accept that there are politicians in this world, but I don't agree the way they behave, the amount of how they're stealing money, they're lying, and etc. That is not a congruent way or harmonious way of living. But I don't wake up every day frustrated and angry that form of life exists, and I don't have a thought I want to kill them or go protest or etc. No, I just accept that there's that form of life, and I don't want to associate myself with that form of life. I choose to live differently. I choose to live honestly. I choose to speak honestly. I choose not to steal and etc. So that's the love of Jesus. Love of, let's go with love of Allah. Love of Allah is love of knowledge. So it's a different form of love, is understanding that because this whole universe is created with thought, we need understanding how things work to interact with anything and everything in this universe. So, and that understanding and love of Allah is understanding that every shape and form of life or beings have different access and different library of knowledge. Hence, we should not judge people based on knowledge related aspects, right? You cannot like, I don't know, fly right now to Africa to some tribe that lives in a jungle and start pointing finger at them and laughing. I was like, wow, guys, why are you so stupid? You can't even figure out how to, I don't know, collect water properly and store it, right? And it's like that's and that's an extreme example. But like living today in a society where more or less everybody has access to the same knowledge through the internet, but not every soul is advanced enough, let's say, to consume some shapes and forms of knowledge. It just doesn't integrate. So level of Allah is just having that deep understanding that every form of life has is a different stage of evolutionary journey, and hence their knowledge and wisdom and library is at a different level. Hence, not use that to dominate others. Oh, like, oh, these people are not less knowledgeable, I'm going to take advantage of them. So that's incongruent way of living. So love of Allah is accepting is just everybody has access slash ability to integrate or understand different amounts and different type of knowledge. Then we have love of Buddha, and love of Buddha is a deep understanding that every being has a unique evolutionary journey. And what that means is there's a saying in Buddhism and Buddhist teachings. There are different sayings about that, but in a nutshell, it's everybody's fighting their own battle in their inner world. And if we're really like, for example, we just chatted before hitting record, right? You have your own battles that you're constantly facing that like make you angry, that make you sad, and etc. And those are your battles. And everybody's fighting their own unique battles because everybody's going through evolution. And just having this deep understanding and empathy that when somebody is doing something that might be incongruent or whatever, it's not because they're not doing it because they're a happy being. It's because they're fighting some kind of inner battle and they're doing it out of internal pain. And so that's one part, the battle. The second part is everyone's battle is unique. So, for example, and that's why there's this notion in today's version of the world to promote something. Oh, like use this modality or use this vitamin. It really worked for me and it helped me, and it's gonna work for you. No, everybody's journey is so unique that whatever is going to be a vitamin for me will be poison for you. So that's another part of love of Buddha, is understanding that because everybody's journey is unique, everybody energetically is unique. We cannot judge them based on their actions, expressions, behaviors, and etc. Because somebody might be joining the war, let's say, right now, right? Either of the wars, I don't know, either of the conflicts, and we could be pointing finger, oh, you should be for peace. But for that person, it's actually harmonious to join the war because they could have strengths and willpower as dominating energy that needs to be activated, plus a predisposition of being an energetic warrior. And the fastest way to activate is dropping into some kind of extreme zone of conflict and let that energy kick in so you understand what that energy is, how to use it harmoniously, and then Matrix will pull them out once it's activated. So for them, it is actually harmonious. Whereas for majority of people who go there, let's say Russian-Ukrainian conflict, since I have a bit more context on that, like people are signing contract to make money because of greed, right? That's inharmonious. People hate some kind of nationality, either Russian hating Ukrainian or Ukrainian hating Russian. That's inharmonious. But somebody's going there intuitively and it feels like the right place for them. So that's an example when we're observing externally, and if we don't have that deep context that that person has a unique evolutionary journey, we could judge them. We could judge them, well, like, why are you supporting the war? But for them, it's a very important point of growth. So that's love of Buddha. The last one is love of Shiva, which is very underexpressed in today's, let's call it, modern day spirituality. Or in a previous episode, we've discussed the difference between spirituality, metaphysics, and esoterics. So it's underexpressed in all of those, and because there's partially lack of teachings about being a harmonious or constructive destroyer. So love of Shiva is the energy of destruction, is understanding that for this world to be beautiful, to evolve, and etc., we need to have access to energy of destruction. Because let's say you bought a car, and the car, you've driven it for 25 years and it's all rusty and falling apart. It will either occupy space or it needs to be destroyed so that you can replace it with a new car. Or like you take a piece of land and there's a bunch of bush and grass and weeds are overgrowing the land. You need to destroy that if you want to farm for yourself, for your survival, and etc. So love of Shiva is understanding and not judging people who play the roles of destroyers and destruction. And it's also not just destruction, it's also transformation. Well, and to transform, part of transformation is usually some kind of form of destruction. There's some kind of energy or material thing that you change or you break and collect in a different form. So the reason I mentioned everybody in that it's lacking in today's version of spirituality, because everybody's trying to be a white fluffy bunny and sitting around the fire singing kumbaya, and we're light warriors. The real light warriors are actually destroyers, because they are destroying the inharmonious energies, parasitic energies, all the energies that are not permitting a person or a planet to move to the next level. As an example, huge part of our practice and work right now is love of Shiva, through love of Shiva, or being destroyers, or what we also call dark path. People come to us with all types of energetic blockages, entities, I don't know, implants, the list goes on. We use love of Shiva to be able to destroy them. And the key thing there, when we destroy those things, we have no anger. We don't judge them. It's being able to destroy and transform from a complete state of peace, from a complete state of being leveled. Because if you start destroying something from a place of resentment, and it's interesting tying this to our conversation about meditation, right? When we resent some kind of energy in ourselves, some kind of, let's say, negative thoughts or emotions, we cannot transform it. The reason we cannot transform it, because we are charged. We're not in a state of peace or harmony. Hence, when we try to change it, it actually takes over us and start controlling us, and we start giving it energy. So when we are in a piece of, we also call it, a form of it is also called righteous anger. What righteous anger is an energy of destruction, because anger can be used to destroy things. But righteous anger, it's like the destructive energy is spinning, but I'm not angry. Like I feel it. I feel the destruction, but I'm like at a complete peace. Like similarly, I can, if let's say an harmonious person comes into my field, and they are in my field because I needed to course correct them, I can scream at them. And it will seem like an angry expression, but within me, I will be in a complete state of peace. So I will just express this energy of destruction to course correct them, while staying at peace. And like once that energy passes, it's like I'm still in balance. It hasn't shaken me. So that's love of Shiva, and that's a whole, let's call it a whole separate school of knowledge / wisdom, how to use it. Because without it, nothing can transform, nothing can change. Like even ourselves, when we're working on ourselves, trying to heal trauma, we're actually destroying it. But we cannot destroy the challenge. Where the reason a lot of people cannot self-heal is because they get so emotional about that trauma. They start getting angry at it. They start feeling guilty, whatever that is. So that's an inharmonious expression. So they start actually feeding the trauma. When I come in and see my own trauma that I discovered, let's say new one that I haven't seen yet, or I see somebody else's trauma, there's no judgment and there's complete peace. And I see how it's preventing person from moving forward. And I'm okay to interact with that super low vibration and energy. It doesn't unbalance me. It's like that let's call it the flavor of it, that is so like the person is avoiding so much and they want to escape it and not taste it ever so much. It doesn't bother me. It's okay. It's like, it's just the flavor. It's like eating a sour apple versus a sweet apple. Okay, I just accept it's a sour apple, and it's okay. Since we don't want to keep eating sour apples, let's stop planting more seeds for sour apples. So that's, and let me summarize all this. So there's four forms of love. That brings us, when you combine these four forms of love, that brings us to the love, or what is called absolute love. And that is that experience that I've lately been having more and more consistently, just generally towards within myself and towards everything around me. Let's call it the world, but also in a romantic relationship that I'm in. And that is a completely different experience of what I've ever had. And I'll unpack a little bit further. So the first example that I given, what people call love, it's some kind of energetic contract or karmic contract or whatever, karmic knot, whatever. That's one shape and form. The second type of, let's call it, since we will bring back all this to romantic context, is usually a person or people, partners and couple pick one form of love. Unconditional love, Jesus. Oh, I accept this partner fully and etc. And then this partner, let's say, I don't know, starts lying to you. Oh, I accept them. Yes, that's part of it. So they pick and choose one of the forms, right? And it could be they could pick Shiva, love of Shiva, like women love picking that one. Picking when they pick man who is a project, right? Oh, I'm gonna turn this man into a strong, successful partner, and
break him down and build him up.
Exactly, love of Shiva. So they would pick one flavor, right? And they would really kind of go deep into it, and that becomes dysfunctional again as well, because if you're just stuck in unconditional love, I accept anything and everything, and the partner is like being super toxic and etc., and you're afraid to use love of Shiva to course correct, to provide feedback, to set a boundary or whatever it is, right? Then that relationship goes off rails. So ultimately, and this is still playing out for me in life, and I don't have definitive data thoughts, but given what I've experienced so far, the ultimate state of any kind of relationship, either it's romantic or relationship with family, friends, with the world, with your pet, with your with the environment that you're in, is this state of absolute love, because it encapsulates all four qualities and they express at the right time, at the right place. And as I observe it in the context of romantic relationship, it is mind-blowing in a good way, because I'm in a full acceptance of my partner. But at the same time, when need be, I provide feedback. So love of Shiva. I'm an acceptance that my partner has a complete different journey than me. So I cannot judge her and her expressions and some shapes and forms, and or friendships or like jobs or whatever, right? Because her evolutionary path is different than mine. And then coming to love of Allah, she has different access to different type of knowledge. Some things she's excels in, other things she's clueless. She's like, to her, it's like a surprise. Oh, really? And like nature could be, wow, you don't know a basic thing, but to her it's not a basic thing, because it's not knowledge either available on her library or not even on her journey, evolutionary journey, right? Whereas it was, let's say, substantial part of my life. And so hence, once all those combined, the state is the state that I experience is only wishing the best for the partner. Like it's almost, when I've started touching this absolute love in the context of this relationship, I stopped desiring something from the partner. I predominantly started wanting to share something with the partner, or wanting something for the partner. So a lot of partnerships or relationship is like also like this energy of exchange. Like, oh, you give me sex, I give you this, or you give me attention, I buy you a purse, vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Whereas here, when you step into this absolute love, the feeling becomes the only thing I desire is for that person to become genuinely happy, which means to fully align with who they are at the essence, to basically align with their evolutionary path. And it then all the decision making becomes easy. It becomes like, uh, it's like when she asked me, I was like, oh, should we do it this way or that way? I was like, well, which way feels happier for you? And like, okay, this feels happier for you and this feels happy for me. Okay, great. Does it overlap? Yeah, great, overlap. So we'll do it in this shape and form. If it doesn't overlap, why don't you do it on your own? Because it seems like it's something you individually desire and I don't need to participate because it's not part of my journey. So I will support you in this activity, in this relationship, in this trip, and this whatever it is. So because that's your unique experience that I don't need to live through. So why would I lie to myself just because a couple now I have to go with you into this? So it becomes, everything becomes very simple because the key metric becomes is like, how do I support you in you being genuinely happy and like aligned in your life? And then the partner automatically, my fear in the beginning was, well, if I do that, but then like, will I receive the same back? It's actually the way it works, the way you are, your field starts shaping the other person. And if the other person doesn't want to participate in this interaction on the same terms, they have two choices. They either transform and start participating on the same terms, or they leave.
Yeah, they
So they
self-select
shouldn't be,
out.
they self-select out, right? So it's actually becomes always win-win-win. And I'll give more specific examples, right? Earlier in a relationship, both of us have the same karma towards masculine energy. And let's call it, to simplify things, one of the expressions of masculine energy karma is toxic masculine, or like dominating, right? Um, and in the beginning of a relationship, because that energy exists, so like I healed it but haven't completed exam, she's in the process of healing it and I'm supporting her in healing that. There are many situations where the little voice in my head, dominate, do this. And then I was like, no, I've already, come on, I lived through this, I'm not interested in this game. But then it's like, it's kind of, it's pushing you. And then I was like, no, I chose not to do it. But then, like, let's say I observe her expressing it somewhere, but then the voice goes, look, she's expressing it, you're not. That's uneven. Why don't you tap into it, right? And then I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. If I don't express it, then we're unequal, and that's unfair. And there's this inner, like, rebellion. How is that the world and the life is so unfair that she can do it and I don't permit myself to do this, right? And then I was like, no, just a second. I choose to live not expressing this in harmonious energy. And then if that person has the same choice, yes, because in that specific healing, that specific energy, I've spent a lot of time on that, and she just started recently. So okay, let's call it, I'm ahead in that, and she's behind. And but she's doing amazing work. She's done exceptional work working through that energy. But I like see how it's easy for me was to potentially move backwards even for myself and aggravate it even further for her. But I was like, no, I choose to stay in harmony. And if for some reason she continues expressing this energy without making progress, then she will self-select herself out of the field because the fields don't match.
Yeah.
Or she continues leaning into the field, and because she continues leaning into harmonious field, which I'm holding now, because let's say in that energy I'm ahead, so I'm the one that's supposed to hold, let's call it the energetic standard. But if I drop the standard and like lean into that inharmonious karmic energy and be like, okay, I'll dominate, then I'm not holding anything, and she doesn't have the bar to move towards. So I've actually degraded, she is now has even more incentive to degrade because she goes, oh, look, he's doing it. So now we start a downward spiral versus when I choose to know, I stay that, even if it's like unfair, it doesn't matter. Everything is fair. I choose to live in a harmonious field. So to her, it becomes like a lighthouse towards which she moves, it becomes subconscious motivation, inspiration to be like, wow, like I could be so harmonious and peaceful in these situations in life. So so that's basically comes back to this absolute love. Absolute love enables to hold this field without these, let's call them karmic games and inharmonious expressions that undermine the relationship. So if I would summarize it, at the end of the day, it comes to both partners individually to constantly make a choice of what kind of field they want to hold. And what's difficult in today's form and shape of society, that from childhood everybody was taught to point fingers externally. Oh, you're triggering me. Well, if you're being triggered, what is being triggered? It's some kind of strong emotions arrive. Emotions arrive in you, so they are your emotions. So they're not the responsibility of a person who's triggering you. And of course, some of the most intense triggering situations happen in romantic relationships. And that's where things start breaking down if partners don't take responsibility for their own shit. Because people like, oh, my shit doesn't smell. It's all your shit that smells. The whole house smells, you know? No. Everybody got to take responsibility for their own shit.
So a lot of different rabbit holes I want to unpack there. First thing I wanted to talk about, it's just because you touched on it. The concept of the quote unquote soul contracts, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would, for example, the listeners recognize or begin to recognize if they were in a soul contract with somebody? What would be the flashing red lights that would be telling them, okay, look at this situation. This kind of looks, feels, smells like a soul contract.
Yeah, I was just working with a woman, and that's a great example. She was in a relationship. Well, she had a family, married, met somebody who she had very strong attraction to, and decided to leave family. Had that experience for whatever year or two or whatever the period was. Went back, tried going back to family, ended up ultimately being single, but keeps thinking about that 1-2 year relationship. But that person already moved on, but she's still like trapped in these thinking. And the reason I'm bringing this example, first of all, stage number 1, strong attraction to a point where you're willing to break family. So it's like almost unexplainable. And it's like, well, I've already built the unit, right? And then, so like, that's why I described like roller coaster type of attraction, butterflies in the stomach. That's usually karmic or karmic contract. So usually those are the strongest and those are the most, let's call them, they can be the most destructive. When you have this type of feeling where you cannot forget some kind of partner, or you're in a healthy or even somewhat healthy, partially healthy relationship, and it does not necessarily does not need to end, and you have this attraction to someone else, and you're like thinking you're gonna cheat or quit relationship, high chance there is a karmic contract or unprocessed karma. Highly recommend reaching out to someone who can help you navigate this. Difficult to navigate on your own. The softer contracts, there are contracts of healing, contract of support, contract of partnership. For example, I got married second time because we had incarnations where we couldn't be married, and we made each other a promise that we made a contract that of partnership that sooner or later we'll have that experience. So as soon as we got married, energy started disappearing and dissipating. We lost interest in each other. We were happy individually, but together we were not really adding happiness to each other. So as soon as we completed that contract, we've tried working in a relationship, and like she's self-aware, I'm self-aware, we were like pure intentions to make it work, but it just wasn't working out. We've completed the contract, we divorced, moved on, and now we live our own individual lives. So that's another example of a contract. So those are so the contract of partnership could end you up, could lead you to a marriage that does not necessarily need to be long-lasting marriage. It needs just to be cleared. But in some scenarios, souls make a contract for partnership to bring two souls that are actually aligned to be in a marriage. So it depends how it happened. In our scenarios, it happened because we had traumatic experience where we couldn't be married, and we created a promise. And that promise, that energy had to flow. The contract needed to be complete. Versus souls loading in and go like, wow, it's great for Nikolai or whoever, let's say John, to evolve with Emmy, and they will have spectacular, supportive evolution as a couple. And that's a healthy contract of partnership. And when they come into partnership, the energy doesn't disappear, they keep going. And they like each other, they grow, they support each other in each other's growth. So if I would summarize, and there are different shapes and forms, there is some kind of unexplainable pull to another person. And it's not just romantic relationships, it's relationships like somebody I'm helping right now, right? I was like, I had this intuition to help that person. And then I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, there is a contract. Okay, great. I'll complete the contract. And so when you have any kind of pull to a person that you cannot explain, high chance there is some kind of contract. So if that pull is not constructive, highly recommend find someone who can help you out to navigate and resolve that, so it doesn't continue penalizing or taxing your life.
Well, so that's what I wanted to ask you about. If every contract needs to be completed,
Yeah.
how do you square that in a situation where completing the contract actually would be highly destructive, either to your life, to their life, to other people's lives? Like, as what you said, maybe presuppose that you have a partnership contract that needs to be
Yeah.
fulfilled, and now this person is like, okay, I'm, out of the blue, I'm leaving my marriage, I'm going after
Yeah.
this to complete the contract. But it's probably not the best thing that they could do in their
Exactly.
lives, right?
Yeah.
So how
So
do you do that?
so there are, and that's why I mentioned find somebody who can help you with that. There are souls that have energetic capability. Let's call them energetic judges. You can go to a court and judge with a business contract and change the contract, right? Or you can go to a group of lawyers and renegotiate the contract. So there are souls that have capability to redo or cancel contracts. So like I have that capability. So rather than person leaving it out, like experience it in actual life, they can come and we'll analyze and making sure that everything is fair and square, meaning that I can clear this contract, cancel this contract without creating any major unfairness or breaking universal laws or etc. Then we clear the contract. And a lot of them actually can be cleared like this. Some of them can't, and then you provide guidance to a person how to navigate it with the least destruction to their life. If it's not, let's call it, if it's not fully harmonious to where they stand in life. And there's
Right.
always a way to complete contracts in a constructive way rather than destructive. There's always a way to flip the energy. Like, for example, you can, let's say, the soul cheated on another soul in previous incarnation. Now that needs to be completed. So you were brought together. You just go and apologize to this person. And the person, why didn't even you apologizing to me? I known you for a month. Yes, we have attraction. So you just apologize. You create the contact. You give the contacts. You can, if let's say the other person is not spiritual, you don't even tell them about past lives or whatever. You just apologize to them for everything genuinely, on like really from your heart. That's it. The contract rebalances.
Okay. Gotcha. something, because we were talking about these soul contracts, right? And
Yeah.
soul level love. I'm curious because when you mentioned, there's love of Jesus, love of Allah, love of Buddha, love of Shiva, absolute love. So is this all coming from the soul? Like, is there a soul love? Is there then a spirit love? And then do we find ourselves having a quote unquote a mental love as well? Or where is the love actually coming from in that sense?
Well, that's a beautiful question. In one of the episodes, we've talked about three levels of ego: mind ego,
Hmm.
soul ego, spirit ego. Similarly, there is a predisposition what kind of love you can experience, right? If you live purely your life through your mind, then more person would experience the so-called energetic contracts type of love. When you start living through your soul, that means you're already tapping into one form or couple forms of, let's call them higher forms of love. Like you, let's say, could have tapped in your scenario. It's easy to tap into love of Jesus because your dominating energy of the soul is love, which is unconditional love. Right. And once we reach synchronization with spirit, we start experiencing this so-called absolute love, where we start integrating all four forms, because spirit is basically the level of consciousness or the level of energy closest to absolute, the creator, the Big Bang, the singularity point, or etc. So when we go into that point from where universe has exploded out and started forming, in that point of highest vibrational, highest density energy, that's that experience of absolute love. That's the form of highest vibrational energy. So that's the spirit. And people have those experiences in like meditations and psychedelic experiences and etc. Well, one side note: psychedelic experiences, some of these forms of love that are people think they're experiencing, let's say unconditional love, universal love, they're actually synthetic. They're not real. They're like, it's kind of like eating an apple that you picked from a tree in your garden versus uh, eating actually a 3D printed apple. Trying to eat a plastic 3D printed apple. It looks, and you can even spray it with smell. It could look very genuine, or one of those decorative plastic apples on a table in a
Oh yeah.
restaurant. They put it. In some of psychedelic experiences, or in many, those could be uh, surrogate forms of those energies, where it will give you like very warm, joyful feeling at the level of your body that could be perceived as love, and the mental image that will be inserted, oh, this is unconditional love, or this is love of Allah, or whatever, and a person start associating that energy as unconditional love, but in reality it was a surrogate. Now a person has a wrong entry in the library, what they're optimizing for, because it's um, like that form, let's call it, so like the mind love, where you experience this, oh, I really love this person, because there's like some kind of karmic knot, and this whole body is like vibrating, and you think this is the love, but in reality it's actually pretty low vibrational feeling. And yes, we can feel it as an excitement, and now we create a wrong labeling system. We labeled it as love, and now we start walking around the world looking for love, but in reality what person is looking for is another karmic toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And so that's why those libraries are so important. So actually that leads me to a very important point that I've observed in romantic relationship. Many early romantic relationship could be closing up, completing those karmic loops from previous incarnations or from whatever. Then person creates a label, that's what they call love, and then they keep looking for that type of stuff. They might have already closed all the contracts, but they keep looking for another person with that can give them that butterfly effects, roller coaster effects, through a different form of karma or whatever, right? And what I recommend to everyone who is either in a relationship or looking for a relationship, to completely reset your library of what you defined as romantic love and what you define as actually just a romantic relationship. And that is something I keep repeating in our relationship to my partner, is that I don't know how it's supposed to feel. I don't know how it's supposed to look, and I don't know where we're going, because these types of relationships have not really happened on this planet. And through our experience, we need to create, uh, not need, we will create an example of what it's supposed to look like, feel like, uh, and like create an understanding. But I don't know because I haven't been in one of those. And that's why, like, for example, I found myself when I was like looking for a partner at some point in the time, looking for more karmic or contractual relationship, because I was looking for that label of feeling that I labeled as love, but it
Mm.
wasn't love. And then I had that aha moment. I was like, wow, I've never experienced real love. And whatever I had, I shouldn't definitely have again, because that's not what I thought it was. Right. So it's very important to keep open mind and reset expectations of what the relationship will look like. So for example, in our relationship, there's no explosive love. It's very calm and gentle, and a relationship is developing very slow. But one thing I discovered early on is like I felt this warmth just thinking of her, being with her. Is just calm and warm energy. To old version of Nikolai, I'd be like, that's weird. It's probably just friendship or not even a relationship. We need a harder hit, like I gotta be thinking about her every
Right?
day. Exactly.
Where's my hit?
I need a line of like explosive love, so I need MDMA here, right? And
Yep.
it's so, as a result, it's so easy to disregard a potentially really good relationship at early stages, because it's not explosive. It's calm and gentle, and it's slower, and it's like organic. The way I would describe it, when you plant something, right? Let's say you plant a carrot, it takes time to grow. You shouldn't pull it out back and forth and plugging it back in, and at the same time you shouldn't expect like overnight it's gonna give you the fruit that you will enjoy eating. And for me, it's a learning, because everything I've done in my life, I liked to do it at high speed, and I like to push it to the result as fast as possible to see what's at the end. And what's interesting, there's no end to a relationship. It's just a different form of evolutionary path that hopefully makes you stronger and enables you to evolve faster without any downsides, because you have additional support of a partner, additional set of energies that you don't have, that are shared with you through by your partner. Like for example, she has same dominating energy as you, love, and I picked that up from her. That I feel like I found completion. Like it was easier for me to learn other forms of love, like love of Shiva, Allah, Buddha. Those were the unconditional love was not really my vibe. I was very conditional and judgmental. So as our relationship grew, it really soaked in, and I was like, whoa. Now I understand. Like I couldn't, for the life of mine, I couldn't understand like why she behaved specific way with her friends, with random people in the street, because that's her dominating energy. And that, as I experienced that dominating energy through her, it's like I understand her. That's why, and that brings me to not judging your partner, right? Because they have completely different set of energies, but it goes beyond. I started soaking that energy in. I was like, whoa, I can experience the world through that lens. And it's so much more beautiful and powerful, because now it finally completes my state of absolute love. And I was like kind of missing piece of the puzzle. So I'll pause here.
Yeah. So, what do you say then for the people out there that they'll have a connection with somebody, right? And it's probably and often early. So you see this with young people. where they say, oh, I had this amazing connection. I'll never find a connection like this ever
Yeah.
again. What if I end up single with cats, or what if, and they're like 19 or 20 or so,
Yeah.
but so first off, when they're feeling that,
Yeah.
is this that contract that's going on in terms of soul level contract of love? And then how do they break out of that box that they're now stuck in, where they've now said, I'm never going to find this again, or they're searching for the love cocaine?
Yeah. There are multiple things at play. Number one, as we're younger, we're experiencing new energies. And when it's new type of energy, first time it is experienced, it's so exciting. It's overwhelming almost. But then you cannot enter the same river twice. And that's where the challenge is. So the key insight for everyone, not even 19-year-olds, like once you've experienced some kind of energy once, you cannot re-experience and have the same experience again, because number one, almost impossible to find the same mix of energies. Number two, even if you do, you've already had that experience, you will not derive the same joy because you've already experienced it. And the idea is to evolve and experience new things. So that's one. The second part is the predisposition of societal upbringing and construct in creating rigid identities. The more rigid the identity, the harder the life is. So if that person makes a statement, oh, I've never want anything else, blah, 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 that just created a rigid part of identity, that they only want to have a specific mix of energy in a relationship. Now they're just blocking off their evolution, because their evolution is actually could be experienced to many different relationships. And for some, it could be just one relationship and they're right and they should stay in that relationship. And that's love of Buddha, having deeper understanding. So for example, I was very judging towards people who partners met each other when they were like 18 in high school and they're still married. I was like, guys, you haven't experienced world. You're stupid. That was lack of unconditional love of Jesus. But for them, that was the right path because their souls agreed. It was constructive. They feel that gentleness, warmth intuitively, confidence, and they support each other in evolution and they go. So there's no right or wrong. It's just the key thing, not create rigid identity. If the relationship didn't work out, didn't work out. Don't go nuts about it, but understand why it didn't work out, what kind of relationship it was. And if it didn't work out now, it doesn't mean it won't work out in the future. And that's another very important aspect. Somehow intuitively, I had this super deep belief that if I'm meant to be with someone, no matter what I do, I will be brought together with that person. It's what's truly meant, what's truly planned as a soul, as part of like important experience of incarnation program. It's very difficult to go around it. It's like you really need to work hard to fuck it up, because the whole universe will be pushing you in that direction. So that's another thing that I would add, not to be worried about if you miss a partner or you screw up a relationship with a partner and that was your partner. They'll come back to your life once you're ready. Well, one side note, you might never be ready if you have a rigid identity, which is preventing your evolution and leading you into degradation. Your avatar can go here, partner's avatar can go here. You're now much further and further apart. You definitely won't meet. So yes, there is a way to screw it up, and the only way to screw it up is to stop your evolution. So if a listener here is focused on growing and evolving, investing in themselves, there's no way they're going to screw something up. If there's a choice to attach to a rigid identity you've created between the ages 15 and 25, yeah, there's a high chance of having subpar experience for the rest of incarnation, for the rest of life. But summarizing all that is no rigid identity. So yeah, you can create labels, but if you've created some labels, that's what love is. Set an intention to uncreate those labels and ask universe to show you what it could be. Like in your meditations, just I'd like to experience what true authentic love is. say that out loud, that's it, that's enough. And you can say, I uncreate any kind of labels, mislabeling of energies, experiences, and etc. So that part of library gets cleaned up, so it's easier. So the rigidity and identity starts dissipating. And that's, by the way, using love of Shiva to destroy something in you that is preventing you from moving forward. And that's it. And be open to what the world will offer.
And lastly, I wanted to get your opinion on this. Do you think that, especially today, the media, society, marketing has really corrupted what love should be? And if so, do you think is it just the byproduct of V5, or do you think it's also, more nefarious energies that are trying to change what love is into something that we can't understand?
Definitely, there's a bunch of distortion and corruption around labeling and understanding what love is. Like, let's start with like gentler forms. You watch a rom-com and the repeating model of what a romantic relationship, a good romantic relationship looks like, but it's not true. Most of those portrayed stories, like you well, there are different storylines. I'm trying to pick one. Let's say you have a struggle and then you finally resolve it and you're ever after living happily, right? Like one form. Or like you fall in love early. If it's like a true, like let's call it not rom-com, like a family-oriented movie, they portray a family they met when they were 18 in high school and they made kids and they lived happily ever after, right? And yeah, that is true to small percentage of population. And the first storyline I shared is true to small percentage of population. Everyone has such a different journey of how they end up in a harmonious relationship. So, but what's interesting, a person watching these movies picks one storyline that they like, that they think is theirs, and really attach to it, create a very strong label. And when they're going around on dates, if the first 5 dates don't work out that way, they start disregarding that person. So that's, let's call it on a gentler side. On the more destructive, aggressive side, look what happened with sex today. People are sleeping around like going. It's like going to a gym. Like one night stands were made okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
like one of the most destructive things that can be done for either man or woman energetically, because sexual interaction creates a deep sexual bond and exchange, energetic exchange. So if you're fucking with people who you're not intending to date, you're literally unloading some of your energetic garbage into them, and they're unloading energetic garbage into you. And then people are surprised why they cannot form a harmonious relationship, or why their life became so much harder. Let's even forget about romantic relationship, why their life gets worse, because there's through that type of interaction they pick up a bunch of crap from other people now that they have to deal with. Not only they already had their own karma, their own lessons to go through these type of deep energetic connection, they picked up additional crap that they have to work through. So in the first place, it was already not easy, and they just made their life even harder. That is, and then of course it adds all these additional flavors because it happens in the context of romantic interaction. Now all that gets so muddied. What love is, right? Is it a good sex? Is it how you feel after sex, even if it was not good? And etc., etc. And another thing, what it does, it creates deep energetic connection. And so now by having sex, you more or less established a form of energetic contract that actually takes time to dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
So a person that does one night stands establish energetic contracts let's say with 10 people, and now they're finally like, oh, I want to build a family. And when they come to a harmonious partner, that partner, let's say, haven't done that, and they're like, something weird about you. Like, it feels like you're subconsciously, they feel it, that let's say the woman or the man is linked to 10 other people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not sure I can trust you. And it will express in all funny ways, right? I'm not sure if I can trust you. Not sure, like, the sex doesn't feel that good, or I feel like you're still stuck in 5 relationships ago thinking about that guy or a girl, right? So all that plays out. So the biggest thing that I can okay, it's fine to dream about Hollywood type of romantic relationship. It's less destructive, but still could be destructive. But if people could do one thing when it comes to romantic relationship, is stop having sex left and right.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the uh, biggest step forward in first of all staying in tune with yourself, and when you actually meet someone, intuitively sense if they're the right partner for yourself, versus having all these distortions communicated through all these energetic connections established to previous partners. And by the way, I had like, I'm not shitting here on people who had many partners. I had many partners because I didn't understand better. I come from the same club. Okay, I've tried doing one night stands. Universe shut me down very fast because I literally was so exhausted after very few attempts, like 2-3 attempts, and I felt like, wow, this is something's wrong with this. Like after that, I couldn't have sex for longest period ever. I was so uninterested because something in me shifted energetically that I was like, I felt so taxed, I felt exhausted, and so many things. But then I had proper relationships and I had sexual connections there, right? And then it took me a while to clean up all that stuff that accumulated over life, from even, let's imagine I skipped that stage when I thought one night stands were cool, but I
Mm-hmm.
still had, okay, I had 2 very long relationship. I call myself a serial monogamist, and all of them were in search of my life partner. So
Mm.
none of them were, I'm just gonna get into a relationship just for the sake of getting into a relationship.
Yeah.
If anybody has that intention, you'll get into funny relationship. So also first decide what you desire. And so I was in a search of a life partner. And as a result, I had 2 long relationships, but then I had a few short ones. That creates connections. And it took me multiple years to process that, to really look back, to integrate the lessons, to heal, to disconnect, to cleanse. And the list goes on and on and on. And it was quite a process. So, something very important to consider. And of course, that process can be accelerated if you have external help with somebody who have done it for themselves. Then they can point out, hey, you still have a link to this person, you still hold a grudge, or you feel maybe obligated because that person was so kind and gave you everything and you were an asshole, so you feel like obligation, right? Could be the opposite. And so like all that needs to clear up for a truly harmonious relationship with absolute love to emerge. And if I would connect the dots, V5, V6, Matrix V5 having all these multiple relationships, and the more toxic, the more intense they are, the better, because V5 was all about maximum evolutionary growth of character, whereas V6, maximum evolutionary growth of creation, what can be created. So to get there, the character has to be already in harmony, in a state of absolute love with themselves and the world, and and as a result, the partner that gets attracted to their field, so that everybody's focused on creation. So in a relationship, it would be creation of harmonious family. That's what one project that's being co-created. Then once you've co-created that project, and things are already, let's call them, settled down, you know how you're like doing that, bringing a harmonious way together, then that couple finds an additional project. Could be, I don't know, building a new house, could be starting a business together, doesn't have to be, could be just a fun project like, I don't know, cycling, we're gonna cycle together. So but there's, even in a family, in a partnership, there have to be some kind of co-creative projects. So that's on a unit of a family, but then broader unit, V6 is like, who else I can co-create harmoniously with? Oh, I meet Mitch. Mitch is a sovereign, self-sufficient man, and he does his own thing already, and he does it really well. And he does it in a very unique way, and I do my thing in a very unique way. And we discover if we merge those two unique ways, it becomes a greater, better thing for the whole world. So that's V6. It's co-creation. How can we co-create? How can we come into groups of sovereign beings, not groups that exist now, because there's a major confusion right now around collectives that are formed now. Most of the collectives that are formed now are from a place of lack, of weakness. It's like, oh, if I join a bigger organization, I'll be safer, because, I'll keep this job. Or if I partner up with this person, they have this strength and this strength, I have this strength, but I don't feel enough, I don't feel self-sustainable, and if I partner with them, together we'll be stronger. That comes from a very different energy versus I already feel sovereign and I feel happy and great, and now I bump into a person with who I can co-create to feel even happier and build something even greater. So, and that's also transitioning, not transitioning, that's also what we're talking about here in a romantic relationship. Many relationships were also built from like seeking something that's missing in a person. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that person, I love their leadership, charisma, and etc. In reality, that's what the person wants to develop in themselves, so they pick that partner. And if you work on yourself, and there's actually an exercise in one in Atman alignment course, this is a lecture 8 about feminine, masculine energy and relationships. There is an exercise there that we give to people. It's like, list out for everything you're looking in a partner. And after they list it out, we tell them that that's what you're looking for yourself. So why don't you give it to yourself? And then you'll stop attracting wrong people, because when you're looking for something externally, then in reality, what you're trying to do is find somebody from who you can learn it. And once you've learned it, that relationship might end because it's not fundamental. You've just attracted somebody to learn that type of energy. When you flip it, that list, you give it to yourself, you start feeling sovereign and complete, you start attracting another sovereign and complete person. And then you create a true sovereign collective of two, and the relationship that comes from a place of this absolute love rather than need. Oh, if this person doesn't give me this attention or doesn't share this charisma with me, I'm not gonna give them sex, or I'm not gonna give them that, blah blah blah, right? And that is not a harmonious relationship. And as a result, we'll see this transition V5 that of course influenced the types of relationships we've created. We were looking for something externally, to V6, we're harmonious as a character. An individual is a harmonious character, sovereign, self-sustainable, and they come with another sovereign, self-sustainable character or person into a relationship, and the only thing they desire is happiness for the other person, and they want to support them. And of course, because we don't have yet enough avatars who are fully awakened and fully sovereign, the relationship that will be created and that I see now already being created, somebody's more advanced, somebody is less advanced. So whoever is even slightly more advanced has to take more responsibility, has to hold that field for another person, no matter how unfair or difficult it might seem. And I recently had a conversation with a friend who met a woman who he likes in many different aspects. There are some things are in question, but there are also some triggers. And my comment was to him, you're a high vibrationer, you're more advanced. You cannot behave where you throw your arms up, oh, I was triggered. No, you're the one holding the fort, you're the one holding the field.
Yeah.
So you got to take responsibility first, work on yourself, and by doing that you create a field for the partner to start blooming like a flower as well. And by the way, doesn't have to be a man who's folding the that's also a very important side note here. There is this perception that the man is the leader in the partnership. Not true. If a woman is higher vibration, she will be the leader. But here's where the trap is. When a woman is higher vibration and naturally becomes a leader in a relationship, subconsciously she starts switching into masculine energies because she's a leader. Because in this society, we've created leader, masculine energy.
Yeah.
We've created that link and label. No, the woman can stay a leader by being a woman and understand that she is holding the field. And in some relationship, as I coach people, I tell them straight up, I tell the woman straight up, you're higher vibe, you hold the field, you hold more responsibility. And yes, your man is masculine. His energy knows how to expand, build long-term strategy, and etc. So you allow him to be a man. You allow him to do all these things. But energetically, you have more responsibility of holding the field for your relationship, holding that harmony, balance, peace, take more responsibility, not uh, uh, explode back when something goes not the way you want it. Whoever high vibration, they have more responsibility to really show the unconditional love, show the love of Buddha, show the love of Allah and Shiva. So they take on responsibility to be the model in a relationship of what they desire a relationship to be. But if they're behave the same way and they feel it's unfair, it's like, oh, but he does this all the time and screw him, I'll do the same. Well, both of you just start degrading. Somebody has to step up and lead it and hold that field and hold the field as moving up, evolving, where you're stepping over your old desires to behave inharmoniously, to scream back or whatever. Hold that back, work on yourself, take responsibility. And that then inspires the other person. And if it doesn't inspire the other person, they'll just leave you a field. And the universe will bring you the person who will appreciate that deeply, appreciate you taking responsibility.
All right. Well, you will never be out of clients. That's all I have to say.
Well, similarly for you, I'd say.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was great. Thank you very much. I think we effectively unpacked what love is and also, just how these different contracts can skew what people think love is, how they feel about love, and even what becomes the direction that they want to go in when it comes to finding for love. So
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for excellent questions. Till the
All
next
right.
one.
Next time, same channel.